All right, today we're cracking open a genuine paleontological cold case. We're going to examine a fascinating, almost comical puzzle from the fossil record that perfectly captures just how messy, dramatic, and honestly, ever-evolving the science of paleontology truly is. So let's dive right into the story of a very unique dinosaur. We're talking about a creature that boasts an absolute record-breaking trait, yet somehow suffered from a massive identity crisis that dragged on for nearly 5 decades. 23. Now, in the world of paleontology, that's not just a random number. It's actually a world record. That is the exact number of letters in the longest dinosaur genus name ever discovered. Now, you know scientists, they love naming things, right? They usually string together complex Greek and Latin roots to describe whatever new features they've found. But for this particular dinosaur, they took things to a completely different level. Because when you take that massive genus name and combine it with the specific species name to get the full binomial classification, the whole shebang stretches to a staggering 37 letters in total. Seriously, try saying this with me. Micropachycephalosaurus hungtuayenensis. Imagine trying to fit that on a tiny little museum placard. It's an absolute mouthful. But what does this giant, tangled string of a name actually tell us about the creature it belongs to? Well, let's break down the translation. Micro obviously means small, pachy means thick, cephalo means head, and saurus, as you probably already know, means lizard. So Micropachycephalosaurus literally translates to the small, thick-headed lizard. The species name hongtuayensis just refers to the specific train station in China where it was found. Now, a name like that instantly paints a very specific picture in your mind, doesn't it? You're probably picturing a creature with a distinct, heavily armored, rock-solid skull roof. But here is where we hit the absolute best part, a brilliant piece of irony buried in the fossil record. We've got this massive, record-breaking name completely at odds with a profoundly tiny body. Micropachycephalosaurus was not some towering, terrifying monster of the prehistoric world. Not even close. Fully grown, this dinosaur barely reached 1 meter in length. That's just a little over 3 feet. It's this incredible paradox. You have a dinosaur roughly the size of a golden retriever lugging around the heaviest name in scientific history. And you can really see just how unimposing this little guy was. This was a bipedal dinosaur, meaning it zipped around on its 2 hind legs, and it was entirely herbivorous, strictly a plant eater. Notice the sleek build, the really small stature, and the total lack of any terrifying claws or massive bone-crushing teeth. It was just a nimble little forager. But to understand exactly why this small, harmless herbivore caused such a massive headache for the scientific community, we need to go back to the exact moment it was pulled from the earth. The year was 1978. Renowned paleontologist Dong Jiming was out working in Shandong Province, China, excavating a cliff face just southwest of the city of Laiyang. Now, what makes this specific dig site kind of unique is how close it was to modern infrastructure. These fossils were literally found on a cliff right near the Hongtuayan train station. Dong carefully extracted a collection of ancient bones from the rock, and based on what he found, he introduced Micropachycephalosaurus to the world. But what exactly did he pull out of that cliff? Let's lay out the evidence board. Here is exactly what pieces of the puzzle Dong had to work with. This is the holotype, officially designated as IVPP V5542. And remember, a holotype is that one specific physical specimen that serves as the gold standard reference for naming a new species. So, we've got a left quadrant bone from the skull, some partial teeth, various vertebrae from the back and tail, a left ilium from the pelvis, a left femur, and the top part of a left tibia. It's a pretty decent collection of fragments. But notice what is glaringly absent from this primary list of bones. The million-dollar question, where did the skull go? Specifically, where is that thick skull roof that literally gave the dinosaur its record-breaking name? Now, when Dong originally described the species back in '78, he did briefly mention a parietal and squamosal bone, which are the exact bones that form that iconic thickened dome we see in Pachycephalosaurus. He described them in the text, sure, but crucially, he didn't provide any illustrations or photographs of them in his publication. And years later, when other scientists went back to double-check his work, they ran into a massive problem. A follow-up study hits a literal wall. Researchers noted a massive red flag, stating the supposedly thickened skull roof was missing from the fossil collection the scientists examined. In 2008, paleontologists Butler and Jha went to reevaluate this dinosaur. They scoured the collection for those crucial parietal and squamosal bones, and they were completely gone, just vanished, unable to be located anywhere. And without those specific bones to prove it, the entire foundation of the dinosaur's name and its place in the evolutionary family tree instantly crumbled. This missing piece of evidence threw our tiny dinosaur into a full-blown identity crisis. Because, classifying dinosaurs isn't just about slapping a cool name tag on a dusty bone. It's about understanding how life actually evolved and how these different species relate to one another. Without that thick skull roof to examine, scientists literally couldn't prove it was a pachycephalosaur. The whole scientific community had to hit pause and completely reassess everything they thought they knew about this little creature. They say science is a continuously self-correcting process. And man, this timeline is pure taxonomic whiplash. In 1978, Dong confidently puts it in Pachycephalosauria. Fast forward to 2008, the missing skull bones force scientists to downgrade it to an indeterminate status, which is basically science speaks for, we have absolutely no idea what this is. By 2011, it gets shifted entirely over to the group that includes the Triceratops. Finally, just recently in 2024, brand new analyses pulled it right back to where it originally started, recovering the taxon as a basal pachycephalosaur once again. I mean, this little dinosaur has bounced around the family tree more than almost any other discovery out there. Okay, let's step away from the dusty laboratory shelves and these endless taxonomic arguments for a second. Let's actually travel back in time. What was life actually like for this controversial little dinosaur? What did its world look like? Its remains were pulled from what geologists call the Zhongjinding Formation, which is part of the much larger Chinese Guangxi group. This firmly places our tiny dinosaur in the late Cretaceous period, specifically the Campanian age, roughly 75 to 71 million years ago. Imagine a world entirely different from the rocky modern cliffs of Shandong. Back then, this environment was incredibly warm and humid. The geology actually tells us it was a fluvial to lacustrine environment, which just means it was a vibrant, wet landscape dominated by winding rivers and sprawling lakes. Although the rock record does show that right after this period, that lush ecosystem did begin to dry out. And our 1-meter-long friend definitely wasn't wandering this humid river valley alone. It was actually scurrying under the feet of heavily armored tanks, like the Ankylosaur penicosaurus. It shared the local plant life with massive duck-billed hadrosaurs like Teneus sinensis. You'd also see large, long-necked sauropods towering above, nimble, bird-like coelurosaurs hunting in the underbrush, and ancient marine turtles navigating those waterways. It was a thriving, highly complex ecosystem where this tiny little dinosaur had to carve out its own unique niche just to survive.
It really makes you step back and think, doesn't it? We've spent this whole explainer tracking a creature with a record-breaking name and a surprisingly tiny body. We've seen firsthand how a single missing skull fragment triggered a decades-long debate over its very identity, shuffling it from a thick-headed lizard to a horned dinosaur ancestor, and then all the way back again. It serves as a really powerful reminder of just how fragile our understanding of the deep past can be. So I'll leave you with this final thought. If one missing bone can alter a dinosaur's identity for nearly 50 years, what else might we currently have wrong about the prehistoric world? What other mysteries are just waiting for one new discovery to turn everything we know completely upside down? Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and hey, thanks for joining me for this explainer.